What we'll do now is we'll get into the week that was, and we'll get into the weekly votes. Now, as we do every single week, we go through the 3, 2, 1 votes of every single game for the round, and at the end of the season, we will be doing a live countdown of the votes, as like the AFL do with the Brownlow, but as I say every week, this is way more important because we're making it. But nonetheless, this is also not exactly 100% a midfielder's award. I mean, of course, it can be, like if they are the best on the ground. But if a forward has a big day or a defender has a massive day back in defence, they'll obviously be getting represented in this votes as well. So I feel like it is a little bit more of a player's award. It's like overall, I think anyone could have a chance. But, you know, at the end of the day, the midfielders do get a lot more of the spotlight because they get a lot more of the touches and stuff. And I mean, that's just kind of fair enough at this stage. But nonetheless, we got to the first game of round 17, Richmond versus Sydney, and actually, I don't know if you can see in the background, but I'm sure you guys know that I'm a Swan supporter. Very disappointing second half from Sydney. I was very disappointed to see it. I thought that we were going to come out and give ourselves a real chance to push towards the finals, and we showed no fight, no nothing. I do think the Nankervis hit was very dirty. I think that did change the game, and the thing is, he's only going to get 3 weeks, maybe 4, because of the goey hit. But I think the AFL should be stamping this out immediately. For a player to run past the ball and hit someone in the head, he went for it pretty much. I mean, that was a deliberate hit. It's not like he was trying to go for the football. That was a dirty play from Toby Nankervis, and he should be getting weeks for that. Like, he should be getting more than 4 or 5 weeks. If they want to be serious, the AFL, I know that they gave Degoe 4, but if they should be making a stand. Players are doing this now. We need to make a massive stand. Give him 6 weeks. Give him 2 finals to think about it, because that was a dirty look. That was terrible for the AFL, and no one wants to be known for that. And I can't believe that Andrew McWalter was more than happy to say that's how he plays. Yeah, bro. We want him to like run around and just elbow bastards in the head. Like, come on, that was shit. But anyway, 3, 2, 1 votes. In the votes in this game, I gave 3 votes to Errol Goulden, 2 votes to Shea Bolton, and the 1 vote to Jack Ross. Now, Errol Goulden was brilliant on the wing once again. I'm a little bit surprised that a lot of teams aren't tending to tag him at this stage. I guess the tag is kind of out of fashion at this moment, especially for a team like Richmond. But he was very, very good in the first half, and I think he was probably Sydney's best in the second half as well. 2 votes gave to Shea Bolton. He was brilliant, especially going into the second half. He arguably brought them back into it and set up a couple of late goals as well. He still needs to work on his goal kicking. I believe that his goal kicking is definitely his downfall a lot. But he's definitely played well in that one, and he was very close to the 3 votes. And the 1 vote I actually gave to the sub in this game, which was Jack Ross. Obviously, Jack Ross. Obviously, he did come on very early because of the injury to the kid in Jack Bauer, and that really sucked. But when Ross came onto the ground, especially in the first half, he was one of the few players who actually performed well for Richmond, and he kicked a couple of goals that they really needed in this match, and I actually, he played some really good footy, came on as a sub. A lot of the commentary was actually mentioning maybe he was playing as like he felt hard done by to have been left out of the 22. And I think there's definitely something to that, because he definitely lifted his side over the line, I think, in the first half and got them back into the game. And then, the quality players like Shea Bolton, Dustin Martin, Toby Nankervis was brilliant as well in the second half as well. And I think he was definitely the catalyst to start that off. After that, we get to Western Bulldogs versus Collingwood on Friday night. The Bulldogs, again, they are incredibly disappointing. I remember saying at the start of the year that this is a do-or-die year for the Bulldogs. They should be making top 4 with the list that they have, and now they're teetering on the 8. And they are just such a teasing team. I think the biggest teasers in the competition. And again, they couldn't perform in the big stage. They had a good start against Collingwood, but again, they got a bunch of goals kicked against them, which is their downfall since the 2021 Grand Final. And look, against a quality team like Collingwood, you got to perform, and they didn't. But nonetheless, nothing taken away from Collingwood. They were brilliant in this game, led by the Dacos brothers. They were brilliant. Nick Dacos is just hitting new heights in the past fortnight to last month or so. Playing through the middle of the ground, which I didn't really think he could do, but he's doing brilliant in there. And that brings us to the votes. 3 votes went to Nick Dacos, 2 votes went to Isaac Quaynor, and the 1 vote went to Josh Dacos. Now, Nick Dacos, like I said, was brilliant in that game. He pretty much sewed those up pretty easily for me. But Isaac Quaynor was pretty close. He was brilliant in this game, had a lot of intercept possessions, intercept marks. Actually took more than Darcy Moore, I believe. And was just overall really good in defence, and he is definitely in All-Australian form as a small defender this year, Isaac Quaynor. He's been brilliant back there, locking down small forwards, and yeah, he's just a great defender, and I think Craig McRae would love to have him in this side. I bet you he's one of the first picked. And the one vote went to Josh Dacos. He was brilliant as well. He's just been overshadowed by his brother this year, but if it wasn't for Nick Dacos, I'd arguably be saying he'd be definitely talked about as one of the best players in the comp. He's definitely one of the best wingmen in the comp, but he's definitely one of the best players at Collingwood, if not the competition, right now. Next up, we get to Brisbane versus West Coast, and look, I'm not going to talk too much about this one because we know what happened. Brisbane won again. They won by 80 points, and let's be honest, they probably left a few goals out there. They kicked 16 goals, 20. They should have won this game by 100 points. Arguably could have got more points than Sydney did if they kicked a lot straighter. And West Coast, what is that? They had one good game against St Kilda and they couldn't perform again. Not really surprised by that. Let's just get to the votes. 3 votes gave to Jack Dunstan, 2 votes to Lachie Neale, and the 1 vote to Hugh McCluggage. Jack Dunstan, after his little pre-season that he had mid-season for the Lions, took himself out of the side for himself. And, I mean, look, it's against the West Coast, so you can't take a lot of knowledge into this, but he kicked 6 goals, and against any team in the AFL, that can always give you a lot of confidence and could be a good catalyst for the rest of the season to get him on and get him going. Lachie Neale got the 2 votes. He was very good again. He's been very good since about, a third way through the season. He's definitely found that form back that he needed to get to. And, he's definitely leading that midfield once again. I wouldn't say he's in that Brownlow form, but he's definitely finding that form that has been... he has kind of left behind this season, earlier in the season. And the 1 vote I gave to Hugh McCluggage. He was very good again. He's been very good in the past few weeks, even though a very weird start to the season, did not play very well at all, when he was really in All-Australian form last year. But unfortunately, they picked wingman in that team. But yeah, he was very hard done by not make the All-Australian team last season, and he's really been left behind this season in the team. But yeah, he definitely found some form in the past few weeks, and Brisbane, good percentage booster. Helps them keep that top 4 spot pretty well secured at the moment. I don't think they'll lose it now. They've got 3 games on 5th spot, so they should be fine now, the Lions. And I think it's going to be a little bit difficult because they don't seem to win games away from home. So I don't know how that's going to go, but they definitely got it in a pretty secure spot right now. Next, we get to the Giants versus Hawthorn, and the Giants had to gruel this game out, but they won it, and they got 4 wins in a row and are now right up there with the top 8. That, surprisingly enough, they've done brilliantly in the past pretty much 6 weeks. I think they've won 5 of their past 6 games and last 4 in a row. But they did have to grind this game out against Hawthorn. There was a bit of a chance for Hawthorn to get one late, and who knows, maybe if James Sicily was in this side, they could have been a little bit more secure down back. But one player who was secure down back was Sam Taylor. He was brilliant in this game. He would be making the All-Australian team for the Giants if it wasn't for the fact that he was being injured. But even then, Jack Buckley has been brilliant for the Giants back there with Taylor's absence. And now that they're both back there, they've got to build the team around that. Those 2 pillars in defence are going to be massive. I don't think I've seen a defensive young duo like that in a very long time, and that's going to carry their team for a very long time, the Giants, if they can hold them. But nonetheless, we get to the 3-2-1 votes. 3 votes go to Stephen Coniglio, 2 votes to Sam Taylor, and the 1 vote to Kieran Briggs. Stephen Coniglio was massive in this game, and was only because of how good he was why Sam Taylor didn't get the 3. He kicked 3 goals, had, 29-30 touches. He's finally found that form that he had 5 years ago, just before he got the captaincy. And now that he's playing hard midfield, he's just been insane this year, Stephen Coniglio, and was very good in this one. Sam Taylor, like I mentioned, was brilliant for the Giants in this one. A lot of intercept possessions, as he's just prone to do, just being always in the right spot. And not only that, but he plays against his opponent brilliantly. I don't think I've seen a defender. I think he's arguably the best defender in the competition. Now, that's a big call because, you've got people like Darcy Moore and stuff, and I think he's very good as well, obviously. But I think as a defender overall, I think Sam Taylor is probably a team you can build around. If I was starting up a team right now, Sam Taylor would be up there with one of the first players I would be picking for my side. And the 1 vote I gave to Kieran Briggs. Now, this guy, my brother doesn't like because I picked him in fantasy when he's right down below, and we'll get to that a little bit later about how, fantasy points-wise. But he was brilliant in the midfield, and he's been one of the highest-rated players in the past 6 weeks. And for a ruckman who was in the VFL, 7, 8 weeks ago, this guy is playing some insane football in the ruck, and who knows where he would be at the start of if he played at the start of the season, because he has been brilliant for the Giants, and it's been a spot for them that they've really found it hard to fill since Shane Mumford. So I think if Kieran Briggs can lock down that spot, which it seems he can, then I think that's really good, especially for salary cap wise, because he wouldn't be getting paid too much, and they could definitely lose a couple of ruckmen around him that they can build their midfield around a quality ruck. So next game we get to St Kilda versus Melbourne at the Marvel Stadium. Sorry. But nonetheless, at Marvel Stadium. St Kilda just can't win the game, can they? They've just can't attack. They only get 8 goals in this one. They struggled against Melbourne. This was a real chance to beat a team who hasn't been in the best of form, and they just couldn't do it. And I don't know where St Kilda are right now. They're definitely that team that a lot of those bottom 10 teams who are fighting for that top 8 spot would be thinking we can knock them out. That's the team that we can take out this season. And St Kilda would be very, very nervous right now because they are on the knife's edge of missing the 8. But on the other hand, Melbourne were quite good. I don't really know if Melbourne can challenge for the premiership at this stage. They're not playing that well. But they made a couple of different changes this week. Obviously, they did miss out on Bailey Fritsch because he's injured probably till the end of the season, probably till the final series at this stage. So they chucked Christian Petrarca up forward, and he was very good. He got 4 goals straight. And as a player who's been playing predominantly midfield for the majority of the season, for him to sacrifice his game and play a role up forward for the Demons really shows how selfless he is, and something we really haven't seen from Petrarca, and the one thing he did do was convert. But nonetheless, the 3-2-1 votes. 3 votes go to Stephen May, 2 votes to Rowan Marshall, and the 1 vote to Jack Steele. Now, Stephen May was brilliant in defence once again. He was a little bit helped by the fact that Max King went down with 5 seconds in the first quarter. So he was a little bit helped by that. He didn't really have to play on an opponent, but he was brilliant, and St Kilda just couldn't get past him. 2 votes I gave to Rowan Marshall. I think he should be in the talks for the All-Australian in the ruck. I know Tim English has pretty much got that spot locked up right now, but Rowan Marshall was definitely had an unheralded year, and he had 30 touches in this game, and as a ruckman, that is insane. Had a lot of clearances inside 50s. He's just a very good ruckman, and St Kilda are very lucky to have him. If I think some clubs need to start looking at maybe a Rowan Marshall type, because I don't know why he's not talked about more in trade period, because I don't really know how much he's getting paid, but if he's not, I don't think it's enough at the moment. But anyway, nonetheless, Jack Steele gave the 1 vote. He had about 12 tackles. It finally showed some defensive pressure from Jack Steele. I thought he was injured. I got rid of him from my fantasy team last week, and he goes 140 or something. Very disappointed by that, but he was very good, and Christian Petrarca was on what he was 4th here. He was very close, but I did give it to Jack Steele because I do like the defensive pressure acts, like tackles and stuff, and he was very good. And if he can find that form for the Saints, that would definitely help them push towards the finals later in the season. After that, we get to Port Adelaide versus the Gold Coast, and Port Adelaide just outmuscled the Gold Coast Suns in that 3rd term and was just able to outclass them in the end. Gold Coast were better, but it's unfortunate because Stuart Hughes his days are numbered, unfortunately. If Damien Hardwick wants that job, he's gone, unfortunately. But Port Adelaide they've got 13 wins in a row now. I think they need to be talked about a little bit more. I don't think they're being talked about enough as a club and as a premiership contender. I know they are 2nd, but everyone's just talking about Collingwood. I think Port are a genuine chance at the moment. They're playing some really good footy, and even when they're down in some games, they just find a way to just battle out a win. And that's what they did here. They had a very poor first half, but they were able to just scrape home some goals. And then when they had the chance, they took it in spades in that 3rd term. And they were led by their inspirational midfielder, young guys, Zach Butters. But in this game specifically, it was Connor Rozee. He was brilliant in this game, and it's going to be tough because obviously the midfield is very tough to get into for an All-Australian. But him and Zach Butters, I think, should be in that All-Australian midfield. Not just on the bench or not just a half forward just to fill up some spots. These guys deserve to be in the midfield because they are playing some insane footy at the moment. But let's get to the votes. We've got the 3 votes to Connor Rozee, 2 votes to Jared Witts, and the 1 vote to Aliir. Like I said, Connor Rozee was brilliant. He kicked 2 goals. Really stood up and was very clean in it. Pretty tough conditions against the Gold Coast, so he was very good. Jared Witts got the 2 votes. He is playing some really good footy. It's just unfortunate, though, that a lot of players just haven't gone with him at stages this year. Especially in the past month. They've just really petered off, and despite Jared Witts playing pretty good footy, they just can't go with him. I don't know. Just the second half of the year for the Gold Coast always seems to struggle for them. And the 1 vote I gave to Aliir. He played some really good footy in the back half. He's definitely found that form that he had in 2021. Obviously lost it last year, but he's definitely found it back, and probably wouldn't get a lot of votes from many people, Aliir, but he was very good in this game against the Gold Coast. Next we get to Sunday afternoon. First game was Geelong versus North Melbourne. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because Geelong were going to win this one by 60 plus points all day, and that's what they did. Down in Geelong, North Melbourne were just lucky to get away with 9 goals in the end. Geelong were brilliant, led by Tyson Stengel up forward. He kicked 5 goals. He was good. Maybe found that sort of confidence that he can find that form that he had last year with a bit of confidence from that game. 5 goals from a small forward is a good bag, so great to see him get some goals. 2 votes to Brian Myers, get 32 touches as a half forward. I don't think that's very well heard of, and he didn't even get a goal. So great play from Brian Myers, and I think he just signed a 3-year deal with the Cats. So that's good to see as well. And the 1 vote I gave to it's probably seeming like I have a favouritism towards him, but Tom Atkins I gave the 1 vote. He played some brilliant footy once again, playing this midfield role for the Cats. He's a great midfielder, just a defensive runner, and I think defensive runners in midfields are pretty unheralded in modern footy. Obviously, you do have the Toot Millers and Kyle Mills and, Jack Steele when he's in form. Yeah, they don't get as heralded as much as, the highlight midfielders as well, like, the Bonds and Pellies and stuff, who get their highlights and get those goals. But they are so valuable to a team, and Tom Atkins is definitely standing up in the absence of Cam Guthrie and that this year. Next, we get to the Bombers versus the Crows, and the Crows, once again, can't win away from home. They are going to struggle to... I think they're probably going to scrape home to finals this year because they will win their games at home, but they won't go very far if they can't find a way to win away from home, because they're not. I don't think they'll get a home final at this stage. And the Bombers, though, I think now they probably have that final spot locked up. They've got North Melbourne and West Coast still to go. So they have 2 basically wins there, and they've got a pretty good run home, the Bombers. So this was a much needed win for them, and now they can push towards top 8, and they're currently 5th and only a game outside the top 4. So if they can scrape a couple of shock wins together, knock on wood for Essendon fans, if they dare to dream, they could be top 4 by the end of the year. But, I'll get to the votes. 3-2-1, Zach Merritt got the 3, Nick Martin with the 2, and Peter Wright with the 1. Zach Merritt, he is one of my favourite players to watch this year. He plays a defensive axe that he really hasn't done a lot in his career, but when he got his captaincy, I think a lot of people would have questioned it, but he has stood up in spades. A lot of players can kind of come off when they are chosen as captain. They can't really take the responsibility, but Zach Merritt seems to embrace it, and he's just been brilliant this year. And he was brilliant against the Crows, especially in the first half when... the game was there to be, not there to be won, but he was definitely probably just in the big moments he was there for the Bombers, and it was really good to see. Nick Martin got the 2 votes, was a little bit quiet against Port Adelaide last week, but definitely stood back up to that form that he has had for at least 2 months, and has definitely been talked a lot about that All-Australian spot for him, so great to see him play well. And the 1 vote we gave to Peter Wright. Peter Wright could have had a 3 vote game if he kicked straight. The 3-goal 3 was good around the ground. He just needs to convert, and he's going to be a star. Peter Wright obviously kicked the 50 goals last year. Injury hampered him for the first half of this year, but if he can hit his strides towards the end of the season, Essendon could be anything. In the final game of the round, we get to probably the biggest shock of the round, which was Carlton against Fremantle. Went across to WA, and Carlton get a massive win. Not only did they beat Fremantle, but they pretty much smashed them. They won by 53 points in the end, led by Mackay and Curnow up forward. Didn't get to the 100 Carlton, so probably wasn't... I don't think that would have mattered. It wasn't really the best conditions, but nonetheless, Fremantle have just shot themselves in the foot with the final chances. They had a really good 4-week patch where they beat some really good opposition, and now they've just dropped off again. I don't know what Justin Longmuir is going to do, because I don't know how he can explain this. I've never really seen a team have these really up and down parts of a season, especially starting off poorly. You don't usually see a team just go straight up, talk about finals, and straight back down. But it seems that's what's happened to the Dockers. And, well, I don't think Carlton will make finals, and I think a couple of these wins are a little bit overstated. I mean, they beat Fremantle, who haven't been in the best of form, and they beat Hawthorn, which, again, aren't in the best of form. So you can't really read a lot into it, but nonetheless, Carlton won well in this one. Alright, so we'll get to the 3-2-1 votes. 3 votes gave to Adam Chera, 2 votes to Harry Mackay, and the 1 vote to Luke Ryan. Adam Chera is actually finding that sort of form that Carlton fans would want. He's not having as many touches, but he's having a lot more bloody impact, and I think that's what Carlton want. He kicked the goal as well in this game, got those plays around the ground, and, you know, he can't... And, I mean, against the old side, that's a really good thing. That's a really good thing to show the crowd, but I think Freo will be a little bit dirty about the fact that he celebrated so hard when he kicked that goal, but I guess it's a little bit different. Like the Premier, when players move in soccer, they kind of keep it down packed, but when you leave in an AFL team, you go a little bit over the top, but let's be honest, I don't think that's a big deal. 2 votes to the Harry Mackay. He was very good in this one. He kicked 3 goals, 1, I believe. Don't quote me, but very good. And if he can find form with Charlie Curnow towards the end of the season, maybe for Carlton. I'm not going to say yes, but if they can both find form towards the end of the season, potentially finals could be on the cards, but I think they're a little bit too far away. And the 1 vote I gave to Liam Ryan. Now, I know they got beaten by 50 points, Carlton, but he had 35 touches, about 15 marks, a lot of intercept possessions, and I think Fremantle would have been smashed by a lot more if it wasn't for Luke Ryan being back there for the Dockers.